right. You'll do nothing wrong. Life will be so nice. Pretty one, come on, talk to me.
Frankie Lymon, the melodious voice behind Why Do Fools Fall in Love, captivated audiences with his youthful charm. However, his rise to fame was cut tragically short by his untimely death at just 25. Join us as we uncover the tragic death of Frankie Lymon, the rise of Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers. Frankie Lymon was unmatched in talent. His voice, charisma, and energy made a lasting impression. Frankie was recognized for his heartfelt demeanor and inherent charm, standing out from the beginning with his unique spark. Even though he faced difficult circumstances growing up, his love for music was the driving factor that influenced his life. His name was about to be recorded in history as the leader of the Teenagers, a band that would innovate doo-wop and impact generations to come. Growing up in Harlem, Frankie developed resilience early on due to financial struggles and the necessity to always work hard, enabling him to thrive despite challenges. However, music provided him with hope and a goal to strive for. His home was filled with music, which acted as both a way to get away and a motivator. Starting from these origins, young Frankie discovered his path to the church choir, a crucial moment in his musical evolution. The choir was not only a place of worship for Frankie, it transformed into a space for personal development and practice. He acquired vital skills in collaborating with others while there, skills that would later prove essential in his career. Frankie additionally picked up drumming, bringing rhythm to his expanding set of skills. These encounters boosted his self-assurance for performing in public, getting him ready for larger venues in the future. Frankie's music journey became more thrilling when he discovered a nearby doo-wop band called the CP Devils. Immediately intrigued by their music, he spent several months continuously requesting to become a part of their group. A group welcomed him just a month before he turned 13. As time passed, the group tried out various names such as the Premiers and the Harmonies, eventually choosing the now famous name, the Teenagers. The group known as the Teenagers, which included Frankie, Jimmy Merchant, Herman Santiago, Joe Negron, and Sherman Garnes, epitomized the energy and liveliness of young people. Frankie began as a backup singer in the quartet, not as the group's main vocalist. However, the boys' love for music was unquestionable. They practiced tirelessly, singing together on sidewalks, harmonizing in corridors, and even rehearsing at Frankie's workplace in a nearby supermarket. Their dedication demonstrated more than just a passion for music, but also a determination to not be held back by the hardships of growing up in Harlem. Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers' relentless commitment and natural ability enabled them to emerge from obscurity, making a lasting impact on the music industry. So what made him a musical sensation? How did the world get to know of his strong talent? Let's find out. Getting noticed. The dedication shown by the group paid off when Richard Barrett, part of the Valentines, acknowledged their skills and arranged an audition with G Records owner George Goldner. At first, Goldner had doubts about signing the young musicians because of their age and potential issues with the school board, along with worries about their ability to handle the challenges of the music industry. Yet, when he heard Frankie Lymon's unique voice, which blended strength and gentleness while carrying an emotional depth unusual for someone so young, his doubts vanished. Believing in their potential, Goldner decided to sign the band, specifying that Frankie would be the main singer. The young artists reached a pivotal moment when they recorded Why Do Fools Fall in Love at Bell Sound Studios in New York City. Frankie gave an outstanding vocal performance in this session, resulting in a reimagining of the song Why Do the Birds Sing So Gay by Frankie and Herman Santiago, which led to its new title. Why Do Fools Fall in Love was released in January 1956 and swiftly became a hit, rising to the top of the Billboard R&B chart and reaching the 6th spot on the Billboard Hot 100. The group's success went beyond just the United States as they gained significant popularity in the United Kingdom, reaching the top of the music charts. Frankie's sincere performances, coupled with the infectious melodies of their songs, connected with global audiences. The song, Why Do Fools Fall in Love, marked the beginning of the teenagers' rise to stardom, thrusting them into the spotlight and solidifying their popularity. Frankie's charismatic and skilled leadership set a standard for future boy bands, shaping the group's dynamic. Their unprecedented appeal to a diverse audience, crossing racial lines, attracted fans from different backgrounds, such as Black, white, and Hispanic communities. The accomplishments of Frankie Lymon and the teenagers set the foundation for upcoming Motown performers like the Jackson 5. The model of a youthful, charismatic frontman backed by a cohesive group served as a blueprint for these up-and-coming bands. The teenagers' influence went beyond their initial success, shaping the trajectory of the music industry for years to come. During 1956, they kept creating successful songs like I Want You to Be My Girl and I Promise to Remember, as well as appearing on TV and going on long tours, solidifying their position in the music industry. Frankie's powerful presence on stage captured the attention of audiences during their electrifying performances. Nevertheless, even though they quickly became successful, the group started feeling the burdens of the music industry, especially Frankie, who struggled with the challenges of transitioning from childhood to fame. The young star found the intense scrutiny and demanding schedule to be too much to handle. Now the question is, why this determination for fame? What was his early motivation? The answer to these questions can be traced back to his early years. Let's take a few steps back. Early years and struggles. Frankie Joseph Lymon entered the world on September 30, 1942, in Washington Heights, New York. Music had a significant impact on his early development and played a crucial role in molding his future. Both Frankie's mother and father, Howard and Jeanette Lymon, were musicians who belonged to a gospel group called the Harlem AIS. Frankie's exceptional yet unfortunate journey in the music industry was established by his early exposure to music. Coming of age in Harlem in the 1940s and 1950s posed numerous obstacles. The community was lively, but faced financial hardship, marked by poverty and an ongoing battle for existence. In spite of these challenges, Harlem served as a center of cultural and musical influences that had a profound impact on young Frankie. Frankie grew up in a home filled with gospel music because of his parents' participation in the Harlem AES, alongside his brothers Howard Jr., Louis, and Timmy. During the daytime, Howard Lymon, Frankie's dad, was a truck driver, but he spent his evenings playing music, while Jeanette Lymon, his mom, worked as a maid, but stayed actively involved with the gospel band. Frankie was deeply influenced by their enduring dedication to music from a young age. He showed a keen fascination with music, frequently watching his parents perform and taking in all the notes and rhythms. His passion for music was sparked, and his musical abilities were honed through early experiences with live music and the dynamics of a musical ensemble. Growing up in Harlem, Frankie was exposed to the harsh truths of life, which required him to quickly mature as he took on responsibilities to help his family. At 10 years old, he started working at a nearby grocery store, a job that was more than just earning extra cash. It was necessary for the family's well-being. Seeing his parents' financial difficulties motivated him to look for extra ways to make money. The environment of hard work and determination in his community attracted him, leading him to participate in activities that were advanced for his age by the time he turned 10. This tough side project exposed Frankie to the darker aspects of city life when he was young, plunging him into a tough and unforgiving setting that required both fast decision-making and savvy street skills. After the teenagers finally made it, what challenges did they face? And what exactly caused their final split? Challenges and split. As the group became more popular, the internal conflicts also grew, worsened by the demands of their success and outside influences. George Goldner, the owner of G Records, had a significant impact on shaping the dynamics of Frankie Lymon and the teenagers. Goldner, started promoting Frankie as a solo artist after acknowledging his outstanding talent. This choice had notable consequences, leading to Frankie being brought into the spotlight by Goldner and causing tensions to escalate within the group. The rest of the group felt excluded and undervalued, leading to an increasing feeling of bitterness among them. The group experienced significant tensions during their European tours due to the constant travel, strict schedules, and increasing pressures. During one instance, their performances were almost compromised by fights and strike threats. The teenagers' previous camaraderie was fading as internal conflicts started to emerge. In 1957, the tension had reached a crucial point. Goldner's focus on Frankie's individual music career led to significant alterations. Frankie began recording songs on his own, and occasionally, Goldner replaced the teenagers with studio artists for backing vocals. This approach made the other members feel like their efforts were being ignored and unappreciated, causing a rift in the group. The breaking point came when the group came back to the United States after touring Europe, causing intense arguments and an unstoppable hostile environment. Frankie decided to leave the group, symbolizing the breakup of Frankie Lymon and the teenagers as a cohesive unit. This decision had a deep impact on the team, who had achieved incredible success as a group. Frankie began his solo career with some success. His first solo song, My Girl, showcased his exceptional skill and landed him a record deal. He also got to showcase his enduring popularity by performing on the prestigious Ed Sullivan Show. Nevertheless, despite these achievements, transitioning to a solo career was filled with challenges. Without the support of his previous band, Frankie encountered major obstacles in navigating the music industry on his own. The controversial hit. During July 1957, Frankie Lymon had a contentious guest spot on The Big Beat, a TV program hosted by influential DJ Alan Freed. The program sought to boost rock and roll music by featuring popular artists' performances from that time period. In Lymon's portion, something unprecedented occurred. He danced on stage with a Caucasian girl. In the racially segregated America of the 1950s, many viewers, especially in the South, deemed this act as highly provocative and unacceptable due to high racial tensions. The response was quick and harsh. The image of a young black teenager appearing on national television alongside a white girl in a personal moment caused a lot of anger. Viewers from the South, specifically, showed strong disapproval, seeing the performance as breaking societal norms. Network executives rapidly reacted to the backlash. They not only pulled the episode, but also completely deleted the footage to ensure it wouldn't be aired again, essentially wiping out a potentially groundbreaking moment in TV history. The scandal led to widespread repercussions. Despite the Big Beat's popularity and potential to bring different races together through music, the controversy of Lymon's performance caused the show to be canceled. This event signaled the sudden halt of a project that was successfully bringing people together with the influence of rock music. The consequences of the event had a devastating impact on Lymon. During that period, he was in the process of starting a solo career, aiming to move away from the influence of his previous band, The Teenagers. Yet, the criticism he received for his appearance on The Big Beat made it harder for him to discover fresh chances. Promoters and record labels were hesitant to be linked with him due to concerns about upsetting conservative audiences and advertisers. Despite going through all these in his career, his gradual addiction to substances became noticeable, causing more damage to his already messed career. Battle with substance addiction. Frankie Lymon was introduced to the tough truths of Harlem at a young age, causing him to slowly be affected by these experiences. At 15 years old, he was exposed to substances, a turning point that would greatly change his life and professional path. During the mid-1950s, substance consumption was common within specific music groups, and regrettably, Frankie became involved in that scene. He first came across substances at a party where a lot of musicians were using heroin, even though Frankie confessed later on that he had no intention of becoming addicted. He couldn't resist the strong temptation. His first trials rapidly turned into more serious usage, leading him to inject the substance into his bloodstream. Frankie's career suffered immediate and devastating effects from his substance abuse. As a shining star who had delighted audiences with songs such as Why Do Fools Fall in Love, Frankie started to struggle. As his addiction to substances worsened, his live shows were negatively impacted and his previously perfect singing voice became unreliable. The sector, initially enthusiastic about welcoming the talented youngster, became more wary over time. Promoters and venue owners started to steer clear of booking him due to his erratic performances, worried that his tendency would disrupt his obligations. As his career faltered, his reputation declined. Frankie's personal life was also severely affected by substance abuse. The young celebrity, who once appeared to have everything going for him, now found himself alone, his connections with loved ones tested. As he increased his substance consumption, his financial state deteriorated. The money that could have gone towards rebuilding his career or stabilizing his personal life was instead used up by his addiction. Frankie was unable to withstand the storm created by a combination of fame pressures and easy access to substances. Frankie's ongoing fight against substances persisted, despite numerous efforts to overcome his addiction. He tried to get assistance many times, entering rehab facilities and making efforts to remain substance-free. At times, it appeared as if he could regain power over his life. While sober, he spoke of wanting to make a comeback in the music industry to regain his former position. Yet, every advancement was met with a hindrance, leading Frankie into an unending pattern of setbacks. One of the most emotional periods in Frankie's life was his connection with his tour manager, Bob Redcross. In a last-ditch effort to assist the struggling singer, Bob brought Frankie to live with him on Long Island and closely monitored him, aiming to protect him from possible temptations. For a while, the setup appeared to be successful. Frankie displayed signs of progress, and his mood improved as he talked about a possible return. There was a moment when it seemed like he could break free from addiction and start over. Unfortunately, Frankie experienced tragedy when his mother lost her life after a long fight with terminal cancer. He was greatly devastated by her death. Battling intense sorrow, he resorted to substances once again to dull the emotional anguish. His mother's death, along with the continued challenges he faced in the music business, became overwhelming for him. As his dependence worsened, the short moments of being sober decreased, and the returns to addiction happened more often. Frankie's life turned into a tragic story of untapped possibilities. Even with his great talent and glimpses of optimism, he was still caught in a pattern of addiction that outshined his genius. The combination of fame, personal loss, and addiction burden resulted in a tragedy that he was unable to completely overcome. Failure in reviving his career. All at once, Frankie Lymon's shining star started to lose its brightness. The boy who had captured America's attention with his voice and charisma began to fade into obscurity. His fame decreased, leading to a buildup of financial difficulties. The music sector progressed without Frankie, who found it challenging to adapt to the tough aspects of life without fame. The burden of declining success was a heavy weight for him, and he struggled more and more to cover his expenses. In 1965, Frankie tried desperately to revive his career by getting in touch with his old bandmates, the Teenagers. He wished for a reunion to revive the spark they had once experienced in their youth. The group decided to give it another chance, but the spark that had previously captivated the audience had disappeared. The gathering did not manage to revive the same enthusiasm and vitality they had in their younger years. At that point, the music industry had changed and audience preferences had moved. Despite their utmost attempts, the gathering ended up being disheartening, failing to bring about the success or the comeback Frankie had hoped for. Frankie faced challenges that went well beyond his professional life. The heroin he first used to deal with fame and personal loss had turned into a harmful presence in his life. His addiction hindered his ability to maintain focus or dedication to his attempts at revival. His his live shows were not as energetic as before, and recording sessions were frequently interrupted. The addiction dominated all areas of his life, making it incredibly difficult to make a comeback in the music industry. Determined not to give up, Frankie signed short-term contracts with various record labels, including 20th Century Fox Records and Columbia Records. Each new contract brought a glimmer of hope that this time, things might be different. But none of these ventures resulted in the breakthrough he desperately sought. The music he produced during this period failed to resonate with audiences in the way his early hits had. The rapidly changing landscape of the music industry, coupled with his personal demons, made it nearly impossible for him to reclaim his former glory. Frankie's mental and physical health suffered greatly from the pressure of attempting a comeback. The performer, who was once full of confidence, now dealt with ongoing rejection and disappointment. Each lost chance gradually diminished his morale. The pressure of financial difficulties increased his load, and the uncertainty of his job further bolstered his reliance on substances for relief. Despite facing increasing challenges, Frankie refused to give up on his dream of making a comeback. He persisted in playing at nearby bars and intimate venues, committed to remaining engaged with the music he had once loved. Yet, these shows were nothing like the packed concerts and TV appearances he experienced in his prime. Rather than being admired by large crowds, Frankie found himself performing for small, uninterested audiences. However, these small jobs were the only things remaining to him, giving him a brief feeling of significance in the midst of his chaotic life. Even though Frankie's attempts to revive his career did not work out in the end, he remained persistent. His ability to bounce back from failure, rejection, and personal difficulties demonstrates how deeply he loves music. Despite battling addiction and facing numerous obstacles in his declining career, Frankie remained optimistic that he could eventually return to success and be happy. Unfortunately, that day never came. Tumultuous marriages and relationships. Frankie Lymon's private life was just as turbulent as his professional life, characterized by complex love affairs, numerous marriages, and ongoing battles with substance abuse. He first established an important connection with Elizabeth Waters, an older woman he encountered on one of his tours. They got married in 1961, and despite their passionate relationship, it did not last long. In 1964, the couple suffered a devastating loss with the death of their daughter occurring only 2 days after her birth. The sorrow caused by this incident, along with Frankie's continuous substance abuse, pushed their marriage to its limits. The couple ended their marriage due to Frankie's destructive habits and the emotional burden they could not handle. Following his breakup with Elizabeth, Frankie looked for a new beginning in Los Angeles. He reignited a previous relationship with Zola Taylor, a member of the popular doo-wop group The Platters. They first crossed paths when Frankie was 13 years old, and their relationship has had its ups and downs since then. Despite Frankie's increasingly erratic behavior, Zola stayed with him, hoping to assist him in finding stability, because she was deeply in love with him. Nevertheless, their relationship quickly fell victim to Frankie's addiction. Zola was emotionally and financially depleted by his substance use and irresponsible behavior. Frankie frequently lingered at her place, causing damage and depleting her funds, forcing her to clean up the mess. Frankie and Zola got married in Mexico to strengthen their relationship, but their marriage was not officially accepted in the United States. Despite Zola's constant backing, Frankie's challenges persisted, and his dependence on substances made it almost impossible for him to take charge of his career again. His substance abuse, financial instability, and erratic behavior became too overwhelming for their relationship, causing it to fall apart. Following the breakup with Zola, Frankie went back to New York, aiming to discover a new direction. He encountered Amira Eagle, a schoolteacher who would later become his third spouse there. Frankie and Amira got married in 1967, and there was a fleeting hope that he could start over. Frankie was determined to conquer his addiction, so he decided to join the U.S. Army in a non-traditional approach, thinking that the strict regimen of military life could aid in his efforts to overcome his destructive behaviors. While serving in the military, Frankie was assigned to Fort Gordon, Georgia. Nevertheless, his battle with addiction endured within this controlled setting. He repeatedly went AWOL to play at nearby bars, chasing the excitement of performing and hoping to rejuvenate his music career. Although he was able to uphold a certain level of steadiness, these periods of absence suggested the profound inner struggle between his determination to remain sober and the temptation of his previous way of life. However, Frankie's attempts to start fresh with the Army did not last long. He couldn't completely evade his inner struggles, so he abandoned the military and went back to New York in a bid to revive his music career once more. Nevertheless, his dependency persisted in hindering his advancement. Each advancement was countered by obstacles, and his efforts to remain alcohol-free grew more challenging. Frankie's ongoing struggles started to affect his relationship with Amira. His constant disappearances and returns put a lot of pressure on their marriage. And even though he tried his hardest, he couldn't give their relationship the stability and consistency it required. Like her predecessors, Amira attempted to help Frankie with his struggles, but the weight of the burden eventually became too much for her to bear. Frankie's personal and professional lives appeared to be stuck in a tragic pattern. Any attempt to bounce back resulted in the same well-known failures. Over the years, Frankie's romantic relationships echoed the overall trend of his life, a repeated sequence of optimism, setback, and disappointment. Each of his wives and partners attempted to assist him in rediscovering the potential of his earlier career, but his addiction consistently hindered their attempts. Frankie's narrative turned into a story marked by opportunities not taken, relationships left shattered, and potential never realized. Even though Frankie Lymon displayed clear talent and occasional moments of clarity, he never successfully conquered the obstacles that troubled him. His turbulent romantic relationships and marriages reflected the disorder of his professional life, resulting in a legacy influenced equally by his personal challenges and musical talent. Sadly, his quest for stability, whether through love, music, or military service, continued to be unsuccessful, and the hope of a permanent return faded with each passing year. The sad end of Frankie Lymon. Frankie Lymon made one last effort to regain his position in the music business in the early 1968. He came back to Harlem and settled in with his grandmother, seeking a new beginning. Intent on staging a return, he inked a deal with Big Apple Records in hopes of resurrecting the career that had previously catapulted him to teen idol status. Nevertheless, even though he tried his hardest, he couldn't resist the powerful attraction of substances. Tragedy occurred on February 27, 1968. Frankie's body was discovered lifeless in his grandmother's bathroom. He was only 25 years of age. A heroin overdose was the reason for death, tragically concluding a once promising life. Frankie's passing signaled the end of a lengthy and agonizing battle with substance abuse. Despite displaying brief glimpses of hope in his last months, he was unable to overcome the battle. His final resting place was St. Raymond's Cemetery in the Throgs Neck area of the Bronx, New York City. The people who knew him well and the music community were saddened by his untimely death, feeling a profound sense of loss for a talented artist. Prior to his passing, Frankie had produced 2 tracks for Big Apple Records, I Apologize and Ocean Wind. These tracks were released after his death in 1969, reminding listeners of his captivating talent. Despite his short career, Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers had a lasting impact on the music industry, especially with their popular series of songs, such as the classic Why Do Fools Fall in Love? Frankie's youthful energy and high-pitched voice influenced the sound of rock and R&B, paving the path for upcoming artists. His distinct style is frequently recognized as laying the foundation for the girl group sound that was prominent in the 1960s. His impact spread extensively, motivating iconic figures such as Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Ronnie Spector, The Temptations, Smokey Robinson, George Clinton, and Billy Joel. Berry Gordy, the creator of Motown, acknowledged that the music of the Jackson 5 was greatly influenced by Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers, who set a precedent for future Motown groups. References to Frankie's work and renewed appreciation helped to keep his legacy alive. In 1973, a fresh group of people heard his music in the American Graffiti soundtrack, which included Why Do Fools Fall in Love? Frankie's story remained relevant due to the song's enduring charm that continued to captivate audiences. During September 1979, Joni Mitchell sang the song at the Santa Barbara Bowl and then added it to her live album Shadows and Light. Frankie's experiences also inspired works of literature and music. In 1992, Stephen King mentioned him in his short story, You Know They Got a Hell of a Band, while the Mountain Goats song, Harlem Roulette, from 2012, was based on the last night of Frankie's life. These pieces showcase the enduring influence of his short yet impactful life in the field. Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers were honored with induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1993, recognizing their important impact on music history. The band was honored in 2000 by being inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame, solidifying their reputation as innovators of rock and roll. Gregory Nava's 1998 biographical film, Why Do Fools Fall in Love, brought Frankie's story back to contemporary viewers. The movie, with Lawrence Tate as Frankie Lymon, Halle Berry as Zola Taylor, Vivica A. Fox as Elizabeth Waters, and Layla Rochon as Amira Eagle, depicted a dramatized account of Frankie's life through the eyes of his three wives. Despite receiving a variety of opinions from critics and facing challenges in ticket sales, the movie illuminated the intricate and frequently chaotic life of the initial teenage rock star in America. Even with his challenges and unfortunate death, Frankie Lymon's impact on music cannot be denied. His voice, style, and influence in the field still resonate, guaranteeing that his memory endures, motivating artists and fans for generations. This did not end here, because even after his death, controversies arose. Controversies after death. Frankie Lymon's problems persisted even after he passed away. Following Diana Ross's performance of Why Do Fools Fall in Love, reaching the top 10 in 1981, a contentious legal dispute arose over Lymon's estate. The disagreement focused on identifying who should rightfully receive Lymon's music royalties. The issue of determining the rightful heir of his property was made complex by his several marriages, all asserting their legal rights. In 1986, a legal case was initiated to settle these conflicting assertions. At first, the court decided in favor of Elizabeth Waters, Lymon's first spouse. Nevertheless, Amira Eagle, his third wife, was unwilling to agree with the decision and filed an appeal. In 1989, the Appellate Division of the New York State Supreme Court reversed the previous decision, confirming Eagle as the lawful widow. This choice gave her power over Lymon's assets, guaranteeing that she would get the profits from his songs, including money from the revived popularity of Why Do Fools Fall in Love. Another important issue was raised due to the legal conflict, the question of who truly wrote Why Do Fools Fall in Love. At first, the credit for the song went to Frankie Lymon, Herman Santiago, and Jimmy Merchant, who were all part of the Teenagers. Nevertheless, over time, as the song exchanged ownership, the credits were altered. In 1959, Morris Levy acquired George Goldner's music companies, resulting in Levy's name being listed on the song's copyright instead of Goldner's. This modification resulted in Lymon and his bandmates missing out on their fair share of royalties, while Levy was credited as a co-writer. In 1987, due to financial challenges, Herman Santiago and Jimmy Merchant took legal action against Morris Levy's estate, vying for acknowledgement as co-writers of the song. The lawsuit took place in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, and in December 1992, the court decided in their favor. This choice formally acknowledged Santiago and Merchant as collaborators, awarding them the recognition they had been pursuing for a while. Nevertheless, this triumph did not last long. In 1996, the decision of the lower court was overturned by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. The change was made due to the time limit for copyright disputes, which mandates claims to be submitted within 3 years of the supposed infringement. Due to Santiago and Merchant's delayed legal action, the court deemed their claims invalid. Due to the ruling from the appeals court, the recognized writers of Why Do Fools Fall in Love are still Frankie Lymon and Morris Levy. Even with the legal disputes, the actual origins of the song involve various people whose efforts were eclipsed by legal tactics. While Lymon did not enjoy the song's success while he was alive, the dispute over his royalties and authorship highlights the difficulties musicians frequently encounter in obtaining proper acknowledgement and payment for their creations. So, what do you think about Frankie Lymon's tragic story? Let us know in the comments. If you want more interesting revelations, be sure to like, subscribe, and watch the next video shown on your screen. See you there.